Welcome to another one of our um, webinars. This one is a very special webinar for us. It's coming from GEDC Industry Forum. It's a GEDC Industry Forum webinar series. And so on behalf of IFES, GEDC, and IUC, welcome you all from different parts of the world. So I would say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time of the day you are at. I'm really excited to have you all join us. My job is very simple. I just want to introduce the coordinator, the moderator for this session, which is about the state of the art in industry-university relationships to prepare the engineer of the future. Very important topic that is seeing a lot of discussion from around the world. This webinar series, this particular one, the first of the series, which you will see many of in the future months, is moderated, hosted by Kristen Williams, who is located in France. She is the CEO of Petrus Communications in France, and she's also co-chair of the Global Engineering Deans Council Industry Forum, which has for many years been an extremely important forum for deans around the world to interact with industry and learn from the discussions and take it back to the institutions. So thank you, Kristen, for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Krishna. Thank you for the warm welcome, and really significant thanks for this initiative that you've started that I've found so valuable over the last few years. I've enjoyed many of this webinar series, and I'm sure many of our listeners have as well. We're really proud to be able to integrate this GEDC Industry Forum mini series into what you've created. The engineering education zone version of Netflix, I think, is what you've created. It's a fantastic innovation, so thank you. So welcome everybody. As Krishna said, we've really got a fantastic audience from all over the world. We had over 150 people sign up for the webinar, so just an indication of the interest in this subject. For those who don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of Petrus. I'm proud to be the co-chair of the GEDC Industry Forum, working closely with our partners there, and delighted to welcome you and to host this very first of our webinar series this year. And I'll say a little bit more about the plans for the year and the kind of topics that we're going to be covering. As is the nature of the GEDC Industry Forum, for those who do not know it, it's a very interactive series of events, as Krishna alluded to. We really like to exchange and communicate. We all have expertise to share, and we want to make sure that we continue to share that expertise and learning. So we'll have many opportunities for you to do that during this discussion, to ask questions, but pay attention, because we also might ask you questions too, and we'll be looking forward to hear what you have to say and what you have to share with us. Just very briefly, as Krishna said, since 2017, in fact, we've gathered engineering and technology leaders from the private sector and from education to work together to help develop the engineering leaders and experts and innovators of the future. I know that this audience does not need an explanation of why it's so critical that industry and education work together, and that our engineering innovators and experts and leaders really have got some very strong ethics and skills embedded in their education, and that's what we're working on together. To build on the events so far, we looked at what have been the most popular challenges, themes, ideas, issues that have been raised since 2017 and are still very much current today. And we identified 4 broad themes which stand out, which all address and are relevant to our broad mission to improve university industry collaboration. So we'll hold a series this year of 4 webinars, 4 smaller online seminars, kind of dialogues, and we'll culminate our series with an event alongside the WEEF taking place in South Africa at the end of the year. And I'll come back to that and what the 4 overall themes are at the end of the seminar. But this first theme, focusing in on skills and talent. And it's such a critical theme today. We have 1.3 billion young people about to join the workforce globally. It's the biggest youth population that our planet has ever known. And we have a responsibility to make sure that they have meaningful, interesting, fulfilling roles in industry and education in their future careers, and also that everything that they do, of course, protects the future of the planet for the next generations too. So this is the theme that we're going to address, and I'm really excited to introduce our panelists, who really bring very different global perspectives to the subject. And that, in fact, is one of the features of this series, that we do ensure that we hear from all corners of the world and from industry and education at every single turn. And so I'm thrilled, first of all, and welcome Dora Smith. Dora's Senior Director of the Global Academic Program at Siemens Digital Industries Software. Now, you may well know that Siemens Digital Industries Software is one of the world's top 10 software companies, and Dora leads the program, which empowers the next generation of digital talent. She's supporting with her program more than 1.5 million students and 4,000 institutions worldwide, with industrial strength software learning, curriculum, project-based learning, STEM competitions. And Dora also serves as chair on the American Society of Engineering Education Corporate Member Council, and as director and vice president for diversity and inclusion on the IFES Executive Committee. And we're really excited to have Dora with us. And we'll also hear from Jan Quint. Jan, Engineering Sales Director for Europe, for the Middle East and Latin America at Elsevier. And you all know, of course, Elsevier, a global leader in information and analytics. And in engineering, Elsevier supports universities to transition to a much broader interdisciplinary approach to learning. So working with faculty to strengthen student skills in areas such as project-based learning, technical writing, independent research. And Jan works with corporations and academic institutions and government across his regions, enabling them to use Elsevier's engineering solutions for content, for analytics, to be efficient, to make better informed decisions. And I'm really excited about the examples that Jan's going to share with us from his experience in this field. And wrapping up with Sushma Kulkarni, Director of the Rajarambapu Institute of Technology in India. Thrilled to have Sushma with us. The Rajarambapu Institute of Technology started in 1983 and has emerged as a leading technical institution with the vision of transforming young minds into competent engineers and managers who will face and solve, we hope, our global challenges. Sushma, I know, has cultivated an extensive network of employer relationships, and we'll hear more about this. And Sushma herself is considered to be one of the 100 most influential engineering deans of India, and we're proud to have you with us. Sushma is on the Executive Committee of the Global Engineering Deans Council, editor of the Journal of Engineering Education Transformation, which is published with IUC, a fellow of the Institution of Engineers India, and actively involved with the IUC Foundation. And I mention the publication because we will be sharing some reports, some publications, some articles, and a document following this webinar for those who would like to look further. And we really encourage you, if you have something to share that you think is meaningful and tells an important story about what's happening in your region, we would love to have it, and we will include that, a case study, a report, a white paper. We will include that in the document and share that after the webinar. So certainly what I observe is that in every single client conversation that Petrus has at the moment with the global companies we work with, skills is right up at the top of the agenda. How are we going to find the right skills? How are we going to work effectively with our university and education partners to develop the talent that we need to make sure that our industry can thrive? And Dora comes to us fresh from the ASEE Industry 4.0 Workforce Summit, which gathered a group of leading minds from industry and education in North America to talk exactly about this topic. So without further ado, I am very happy to hand over to Dora to share with us, what did you discuss? What insights can you bring to us today in our webinar? Over to you, Dora.
Thank you, Kirsten. And first want to just do a couple call outs. We want to raise up ASEE as really the association that drove this effort. And so there's a little bit of information there on the slide that gives you some background if you're not familiar with ASEE about their scope. But two specific individuals, I hope they're with us today, but wanted to thank Dan Serra, who was co-chair with me on this endeavor. And I'd say he was actually the chair. I was his sous chef. He led this effort over the last 2.5 years. It was a tremendous pivot during the pandemic. And then we came together physically 2 weeks ago. And also want to shout out to Ken Ball, who is on the executive committee for GEDC, but was also on the planning committee for this whole series of webinars that we did through ASEE's Corporate Member Council And anyone who knows Ken knows he brings a lot of energy and ideas and a network of people. And so he brought some unique voices to this discussion. So this event brought leaders from academia, industry, and policy together in DC. And the whole point was really looking at skills from the lens of how do we accelerate innovation and how we prepare this next generation of engineers. So I want to give you 5 takeaways to for us to culminate and talk about today. And you don't need to take copious notes. There will be a LinkedIn post where we'll have all the resources and links that I mentioned. So I'll just say that up front. So if we can go to the next slide. All right, so the first one I want to talk about is university as a service. And it was Greg Washington, who's president of George Mason University. He was one of our keynotes at this event. You know, he spoke about the unprecedented change driving academia, and our world, but with an emphasis on the model, meaning the financial model in education has to change. He showed this Bureau of Labor statistics chart that showed college tuition in the US rising so fast that it was just under hospital services and just above childcare. And so he cited a book came out last year called The Great Upheaval, and it really looks at the US transitioning from this national analog industrial economy to this global digital knowledge economy, and couple that with grand challenges and a pandemic, and it's really pushing universities to have to transform dramatically in the aftermath. The book kind of talks about 2 buckets. Is it adaptive change or really disruptive change? And there's examples we can certainly talk about in both. But this university as a service, J.B. Holston, who was at our event and on a panel from the Greater Washington Partnership, he mentioned that term, and it really got us thinking. And so a number of follow-on discussions of thinking about, the whole technology industry, and my company's in the software industry, is going through this transformation to software as a service. And part of that is how you offer technology, but it also makes us ask ourselves who we are offering that to and what we are offering. It really changes the whole model. You can reach through some of these new ways you're offering things, a whole new audience. Our company, through software as a service, is reaching a whole set of small to medium-sized business that in the past didn't necessarily have the easy access to our technology. Similar to this concept of university as a service, our CEO, Barbara Humpton, who was also a keynote, spoke about becoming lifelong students of universities. And so think about it like a membership model, right? A gym membership. And we talked about funding models that might be available federally that actually can help support companies in funding that for employees. So university of service, keep that in the back of your mind as we talk today. These next 3 are pretty related, but I did want to call them each out distinctively. The first was looking at diversity as both an issue that we know we face, but as a solution. There's no solution to this talent crisis without pathways of opportunity for women and communities of color in the US. And so looking at some of the comments, University of the District of Columbia, President Ronald Mason was another keynote. And he pointed out the talent shortage, the Bureau of Labor Statistics estimating 1.2 million engineers short in the US by 2026, but really challenging us to look at it from the lens of the unequal distribution of wealth and opportunities based on race. And so really challenging us to figure out those pathways, to figure out how we solve the opportunities through socioeconomics and develop plans to really double the number of women, Blacks, and Hispanics pursuing engineering in the US. Another speaker we had at the event, Jason Stitzko from the US Chamber of Commerce Foundation. This was an organization I had not even been aware of before we started this webinar series. And Jason has brought so many new ideas and resources to our listeners from the webinar series and those that were with us at the event. The Chamber of Commerce has this talent pipeline management framework. And because we like acronyms, it's TPM if you want to search it, but I'll provide the link after. And this framework is something they successfully have done in several regions around the US. So they look specifically at the type of talent that they're short for and how do they bring the right partners together, the right training and education. And so, that's what these events are all about. Let's find the things that are working well and let's figure out how to scale them. And one of the things Jason pointed to was the NSF's Improving Undergraduate STEM Education that is really squarely focused on diversity. So it funds projects to improve the diversity of students and instructors participating in STEM education. And it's really just one of a ton of programs in NSF. This is the National Science Foundation, if you're not familiar. that is called broadening participation. So these programs are all about helping us solve this diversity and talent crisis issue. The next takeaway was around democratizing engineering. And it was Don Millard from NSF that really, this has been his mantra, how do we democratize engineering? And really framing education, similar to university as a service, as an industry that is ripe for disruption, and challenging us to figure out how we go from the one-to-many model that exists today to the many-to-one, and that personalization revolution is here. It's coming to education already. And Don pointed out another area of NSF that funds revolutionary ideas. So there's a revolutionizing engineering departments. It's called RED, that really funds new approaches to engineering education, the way courses are structured, collaborations with industry. And so Don really challenged us to look at, because what's interesting is a lot of this has been funded over the last couple of years. So some of the lighthouses and best practices are just there. And so we'll talk about how we get the word out on what's working. Two other things around this topic. Lee Lambert, who is Chancellor of Pima Community College, was on a panel with us. And he emphasized, he had a graphic that really showed the industrial curve to the digital curve and emphasized 4 superpowers of that digital curve. So they're specifically looking at how do they train in AI, mobile, cloud, and IoT. And Pima really is already addressing this university as a service from the lens of the lifelong learners. So you and me that are maybe in the workforce and are looking to go back, or our companies looking to upskill us. And so we can talk about some of the examples of what Pima is doing there as well. And the last comment on this democratizing engineering, I would ask you to look at, if you haven't seen, Coursera's Campus Skills Report. We had a Coursera Skills Transformation Advisor on a panel, and Juliana really, pulled out some things from that report to look at really emerging job learners and what they are studying in their platform. And realize Coursera has 90 million learners over that in 190 countries. So there's a lot of data about what they're learning, what they're interested in their pathway that we all can learn from. And so these learners in these emerging areas are looking at data science, data analysis, software engineering, and machine learning were the top 4. But from the diversity lens and democratizing engineering, what's interesting is this data shows where they really are attracting more women. So in the US, they actually have 50% female of their learners. And so you can look at the learning styles. They actually have female learner trends broken down by country. So I'm sure Jan probably has more he can share, I think, from the data Elsevier also has in this area. All right, so adjacencies. This is really about looking at the right partners that can help scale and drive success. And that partner might be regionally, it might be industry and corporations, it might be in fields of knowledge. And in that fields of knowledge, there was an interesting example. University of Maryland President Darrell Pines, who also spoke, discussed this regional model called Greater Washington Partnership, put it together, called Capital CoLab. And so they looked across the capital region and realized they were going to be short 65,000 people, and that was before Amazon was moving into the area. So they needed another 20,000. Now, not all of that talent needs to be full degreed engineers, but there is a digital literacy that you need in most of them. So they developed a digital tech credential that looks at data analytics, statistics, visualization, communications, ethics, and security. And he was really emphasizing the opportunity and adjacencies. Think about someone who's going into politics and government, and if we can give them that background of digital literacy, how much better that we're going to be able to serve this, have this more diverse ecosystem to support engineering. One more example there was from NC3. This is the National Coalition of Certification Centers. And they really looked at, how you can have the right adjacent partners to scale and drive that success model. And so they have a lot of different certifications and programs across industries. So this is, again, something that's primed for the taking and scaling. And it's all focused on developing highly skilled, job-ready professionals. And so the last one I want to end on is maybe the most important, right? It's the people factor. And so relationships being so key if we're going to change systems and cultures. A lot of the summit, we ended up morphing from Industry 4.0 to 5.0, because as we've seen some of information come out about 5.0, it's all about that kind of human connection. And so much of that needs to be developed through mentorship. So there's many examples we can talk about if we have time in the Q&A. A couple I'll throw out is the head of university relations from Northrop Grumman was at the event, Chris Carlson. He really talked about they choose programs to be a part of where mentoring is really a focus and a key aspect, because that's where they see the best way to increase the number and diversity of future engineers. Similar, Martin Guay from Stanley Black & Decker, he talked about the need for mentorship, but really from like conveners, that bring this, we talked about the future ecosystem not being hierarchical, it's self-forming. And so you need kind of these conveners and mentors that connect and show you the way. And realize their company, they have to upskill 30,000 of 55,000 employees over the next 10 years. So they're really focused on the people aspect as the backbone of their company and our economy, and looking at how they improve their digital literacy and fluency. And the last one I'll mention was back to Lee Lambert from Pima, because he just shared such a personal story. And he talked about the importance of a mentor in his life that was someone who looked like him, and how the guidance from that person gave him more of a lived experience that was critical to his pathway versus just a focus on skill development. So I know we have that lens, Kirsten, of skills around this whole theme, but it is that the people helping us along that skill development that was so key. I'll share, the link that is on, I believe, the bottom of the slide here. All of our workshops, all that, the notes were taken and are all publicly available. We'll likely have a report and a summary. But if you're interested in studying up on a little bit more of these things, but I've given you the Cliff Notes version of what we were able to take away. So Kirsten, I'll turn it back to you and see what Sushma and Jan have to say around these topics.
Thank you so much, Dora. There's so much to dig into there, and I think I'm gonna ask our audience already to stay on their toes, because I would like to put a question in. Razvan, if you can, just to put that slide back up there, please. I'd really love to hear from the audience. Which of those 5 key themes, key takeaways, which of those are you most excited about in terms of something that might make an impact in your own sphere of activity? Which of I'm really interested to, you can just write UAAS, diversity, democratize, adjacencies, mentors. Very, very keen to see that in the chat. So please all write in the chat which of these 5, given what you've just heard, are you really excited about, or is something that you think that you can take and use or build on in your own environment? And Dora, I'm certainly going to be coming back to you a little bit later on. I'm going to ask you what you're going to do differently at Siemens, both as a developer and developing talent for other organizations, and also attracting, developing talent in Siemens. How are you going to adapt based on some of the things that you've heard? Before we do that, and of course, please write any questions that you've got in the chat. Really happy to hear questions, and we'll come back to them as and when we can during the discussion. But let me zoom over to Jan. And Jan, I'd love to hear, reflecting on what you've just heard from Dora, how does that resonate with your experience across your region? And I know that you're innovating, trying new things as well at Elsevier. So please feel free to share your experience with us. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Kirsten. And just to check, can you hear me well?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So what I see is that there are some breaking changes that students want to have more freedom the way they learn. That was really visible in the last couple of years. And then COVID has shown that blended learning becomes the new norm. And this is mixed with 3 things that I see happening that is influencing a lot. One is sustainable development goals and net zero, and what that means for in education and for the industry. The second big point is the industry readiness and employability becomes more and more important. And the third thing is what I want to share with you is what are some of the creative ways to integrate the world of work into the classroom to have a new way of learning. So basically, to number 1, engineering is essential to achieve each of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, right? As demonstrated in a recent UNESCO report. Organizations like the Global Engineering Deans Council are taking note, and I remember well our last summit last September, where we talked a lot about how to put engineering sustainable development goals into engineering education. At Elsevier, we're committed to providing the knowledge and the tools to enable the engineers of tomorrow to solve the world's most pressing challenges and bringing the society closer to achieving those sustainable development goals. And the importance here is sustainable development goals are influencing the teaching and learning in university across the globe. But the topics varies from country to country and region to region. They are sometimes driven by local needs, often by government priorities, right? We have an Egypt 2030 vision that is out there that is working across water, food, and how to educate engineers. We have Peru 2030. I remember during the last Dresden summit in fall, the provost of the Asheti University in Ghana was talking about their program called Purpose. Each undergrad engineering student is assigned to a sustainable development goal that is important to Ghana in this case, and learn how to see the things in a different and diverse way. What stood out for me was the quote that Angela, the provost, mentioned about what one student was saying. I always thought that governments need to solve the country's problems. After this program, I understood that we can make a difference. So for me, that stands out. The learning is connected to a real life problem right from the start. And I think this is very important. Talking to R&D professionals in the industry, they continue to keep saying to me that it takes up to 8 years for young engineers in a company to make senior engineering decisions. And as we learned before, is that a lot of seasoned engineers are leaving the industry now, soon, in the next couple of years. So the industry is demanding improved employability of engineering graduates. Academia has realized that there is a need to be more focused on driving this employability of those future engineers and to make them more industry ready. Although graduates enter into the industry with really fundamental understanding, their perspective is still quite academic, and this is where we need to change, right? They are aligned with learning, not doing, with perfection, not sufficiency, with knowledge, but not skills. So fundamental is learning how to apply the technology in preparation of the graduates for the engineering practice and the real world working conditions they will face. Coming back to the sustainable development and net zero goals we all have, we all know that scientists are saying that the next 10 years are critical to achieve our goal of limiting climate warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius maximum, right? Given that research on new technologies takes at least 10 to 15 years, at least, to be developed and hitting the market, the importance is now on scaling up of existing and applied technologies. Engineers are playing a critical role to solve the problems and find the answers in its process, right? It's imperative to understand that this needs different skills than a research-oriented teaching and learning. Universities and the industry need to bridge the gap. We see more university-industry collaboration where the industry is seeking help to solve an existing problem now, on the one hand, or where the universities have more emphasis to monetize their research and to pushing their research results beyond just publishing, but to scale up in applications, right? And this requires different skills and resources.
And Jan, I mean, what did you observe with the challenge that you launched and this new approach that you took in the classroom? Really interesting approach, and also something that sounds like it could be scaled up to reach many classrooms and many learners. Can you tell us something about that? How can you scale that up? And also, what did you learn from the experience of launching that?
Great question, Kirsten, and thank you for that question. So universities, they realize that they need to change the way how they educate their students, right? It's first of all a move from professor-centric to a student-centric approach. And as I said, COVID has aggravated the desire from students to learn the fundamentals in a different blended way and not use the classroom or lab and use the classroom and the lab to apply what they learned, right? This change also requires different resources. And I'm not just talking about the functioning learning management system. We at Elsevier are very much often asked how we can support engineering faculty support in this transition, because changing curricula is often a long and painful process. And we all know that, and I'm sure we hear about this in due course here. And professors struggle with the way they apply this into classroom, right? One way we found extremely useful is and easy to adapt is the gamification of learning and bringing the world of work into the classroom. We have on the one hand developed specific undergrad program to support professors to enroll Elsevier's engineering resources in the classroom that is used in the industry. So students are learning skills, how to do proper research and referencing with these interactive based content. Building on this, we have on the other hand, successfully established a program we called Academic Challenge. We're using the fact that students are so desperate to learn the skills in the competition and love to show what they learned. We see amazing results. And so the challenge is, for example, focusing on certain topics like renewable energy, corrosion, water technology, or things like COVID. And solving a team's question like, during the maintenance of a jet engine, they are supposed to coat the jet blades to a resistant corrosion. What kind of coating method would you use and why? Choosing between different kind of blade materials, which is the better, right? It helps the students to understand that very often engineers, there is not an answer, but a range of answers to select the best option. And we see amazing engagement of students, which are producing fabulous results, presenting them in a creative way in front of their professors and deans in a large audience within our Elsevier award sessions. And next week, we're proud to be hosting such an event in UAE. And the top engineering deans of the country's major university are joining this award session to celebrate the winners. We had more than 50 student teams joining the Elsevier Challenge just in the UAE. So amazing feedback. And this is a great testimony that this kind of learning in classroom is resonating well and helping the professors to embed project-based learning into a classroom without going to fundamentally change the curricula in the first place and start there, because then it takes years.
Right. That makes a lot of sense, Jan. Thank you for that example. I'm getting a sign to say my internet connection is slow. It was fast before, but if that means I'm a bit blurry, my apologies. And I hope that you can still hear. And one of my team is saying that we're not sure whether you can write questions in the chat. So please do also write questions in the questions box if you cannot write them in the chat, because we're really looking forward to hearing from you. Jan, I'm going to leave you with a question which I'm going to come back to once we've heard from Sushma, but the example that you finished with there is fascinating, and it makes me wonder if there are any cultural differences, given the number of different countries that you'll be able to offer that kind of gamification mechanism within. Do you see any cultural differences in the way that kind of tool is being appropriated into the classroom by professors and by students? Don't answer, let me leave that one with you to reflect on. I find it really interesting because I know that by 2030, 2/3 of the world's higher education learners are going to be within 6-hour flight of Singapore, right? We really need to think about all of these different tools. And Dora's examples really came from a North American context, although there was a lot of internationality in there. I'm really interested to think about how can we adapt and learn from each other's regions and make sure that the big scalable projects that we develop are actually going to be able to be relevant and used in all the regions that need them. And so that brings me perfectly to Sushma, because Sushma, I know you've got a fantastic approach and experience of bringing industry right into the heart of your institution, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about that. I wonder, again, to reflect on Dora's comments, is there anything that they inspire you to share that's either the same or different in your experience? And how have you approached making sure that industry and university are working together very solidly to make a difference for your students?
Yeah. Thank you, Kirsten, and hello, everyone. So it was wonderful listening to the thoughts of Dora Smith and Jan Quint. Of course, I agree with both of them, because industry is an important partner to work with the institute. So as I lead an institute, I talk more of a particular institute because I'm not representing university. So the skills required, like every industry on every forum in India, at least, whenever there are conferences or the forums which I attend, led by industries. So they all keep mentioning that hardly 30 to 40% students are employable as engineers at the end of their graduation. And then the skills they expect, and they keep mentioning a lot of things about what they expect. So the fundamental things which they expect as skills and talent from the young engineer is that their conceptual skills or the core engineering knowledge should be excellent. All the fundamental, about physics, chemistry, engineering, those fundamentals should be very clear. They should be able to apply design. Then the computational skills. Now everyone wants the student should be able to program, whether you are a mechanical engineer or an automobile engineer or a civil engineer. They want everyone to be able to program and handle different types of softwares, work on the different softwares so that the work can be done faster. So we have to embed all these things in our curriculum. Again, communication, report writing, teamwork, ethics, integrity, problem solving skills, as Quint has already said, that these are the most important skills every industry is looking for. Creativity, innovation to find solutions, management, lifelong learning, of course, is the most important thing, because you have to keep learning with whatever new emerges out. People management, risk-taking ability. And so, see, if you have to develop all this, we have limited time of 4 years. Then a student comes to study engineering. So from that stage, within 4 years, we have to transform that 12th class pass student into an engineer with a lot of skills, which the industry is expecting, along with, of course, the theoretical concepts and the fundamental knowledge. So it's a big challenge, but then, of course, academics is more of what they follow in terms of curriculum. As Ayan has already said, that it's difficult to change the curriculum. It's a challenge because every faculty says we have been teaching this and this is important. Every faculty feels this course is important and we can't change it. So making those curriculum changes, what we do is we have representatives from the industry on our board of studies, and then those people who represent industry, they tell their expectations. They also tell us what is going to emerge out. So like IR4 has come in, and Dora Smith has shared a lot of things. So with those IR4, maybe the computational skills, the programming, lot of different skill sets which every student needs. It's not only computer science engineering student who needs it. It's not electronics student, but it's automobile student also needs to learn electronics, microprocessors, microcontrollers. It's the civil engineering students, they also learn about sensors, because now everything in civil engineering is also sensor based. So there is a lot of interdisciplinary things which come in, and I think the industry people who collaborate with us on our board of studies, they contribute in a big way. And then what we do in RIT is that we try to embed all this in the curriculum, and the design of curriculum is a very important part. So once the curriculum is designed, I will say curriculum is like a flow of blood in the body. So it's important. All the 4 years, what the faculty and the students follow is in the outcomes-based education. We say, what is it we are learning, why we are learning, and at the end of this course, what is the skill set I'll be able to develop. And at the end of 4 years, what am I preparing myself for, isn't it? So that philosophy comes in the curriculum design. So the next part, important part, is the delivery of the curriculum. And here the faculty comes into picture. The faculty, the laboratories, the infrastructure, a lot of like gamification tools or the softwares which we need to teach the students, which the industry needs. So industry wants the gap. There is gap between the academia and the industry, because every industry wants that right on the first day the engineer joins, they should start delivering. They should be productive right from the first day. And we know it's not possible. There has to be some training period. But then if we have to reduce that training period, what's important is bring that into academia. So like what we have done is last 6 months, the 8th semester, the students have internship in the industry. So they spend 21 weeks over there, and it's not only doing the internship, they learn courses also, and then they do take up a small problem in that industry and give a solution to it. And then there is a mentor. So mentoring is equally important. So there is a mentor from the industry side also, and then there is a mentor from the institute, from a professor is a mentor and an industry person, and jointly they evaluate the student. So what happens is all these skill sets which we may not be able to deliver in the classroom, things like time management, things like I have to tell students, why shoes are important. They don't like to wear shoes in our region because it's quite hot. So I have to tell them why you need to wear it, because it's for the safety. When you work in the industry, it is going to be part of the safety. You should be used to wearing it. But when they go to industry, we don't have to insist. They learn it on their own. They learn time management over there, isn't it? So a lot of things they learn over there when they are in that situation. So it's learning by doing. So when in that environment, they learn to do it. So another challenge we see over here is the students, though they learn, it's equally important that faculty also knows what's happening in the industry. So they need to learn new softwares. They need to learn the emerging technologies through Coursera, what has been mentioned. So a lot of online learning tools are available, and the faculty, we keep insisting, we give marks for that in their appraisal, that more number of online courses you are doing in emerging technologies, you will get marks in appraisal. So that's also one area, like they keep learning new things and they also become lifelong learners, and they understand why it needs to be done. So that's how it can be brought in the curriculum also. Because anything you add in the curriculum, the faculty has to be trained, the faculty has to learn how to deliver that, and then only it will be effective. And then of course the last part is how to evaluate them. So the students also need to be evaluated. There also we can take the help of industry people. So we have these industry people on our panel of examiners. So when they ask questions, it's preparing the students to face interviews. So how to face the interviews when the companies are coming on the campus, and then they know what's important for them, to build up their career. Why the concepts are important, where is the application. So theory to application, that needs to be told to the students. So when I insist on pedagogy, is the faculty should know how to give the real life examples. You're learning the theory, but where it's going to be applied. Like in civil engineering, I'm a civil engineer. So maybe we teach them about concrete. What should be the water quantity of water to be added in the concrete? Okay, how the mixer needs to blend that mix of concrete, how it needs to be poured. There should be no segregation. But if I keep telling in the class, it doesn't make much difference. So I take them to the site and show them what is it, why do you need to mix, how segregation happens, how the labor works on it. So that creates a lot of interest, and then they feel like learning on their own. So if you create interest in the course, and that is possible if we correlate the theory with the practice. And when it comes to practice, it's industry. And of course, we are all preparing our students for the industry and the research.
Sushma,
so I think these are few things.
Sushma, you've given us a really great structured model there that I think Benny could look at and say, how can I implement something just like this? And you talked about the results, and you said that the average is 30 to 40%, and your results are quite different in terms of the employability rate of your students.
Yeah. So last 5 to 6 years, if I see the progress, so our placement used to be around 65 to 70%, and of course the average salary was around $3,000, and now it's improved to around 81 to 83%, I'll say, and the average salaries have increased for more than $5,000.
Yeah.
And there are lots of other things also, but I feel most of it is that we are connecting better with the industry. We understand their needs, and the autonomy with which we have designed the curriculum, that's making a lot of difference. Like we are teaching them foreign languages also, because there are companies who say if the student knows Japanese, we'll just absorb them. So we have started with Japanese program, Japanese language program. We have started with German language program. So students take it up. Then we have some choice-based courses. The students can learn on stress management, on interrelationships, how to develop those relationships, leadership skills. These are all choice-based. Another focus we have is about how to develop them as entrepreneurs. So there are choice-based courses right from the first years. If you want to become an entrepreneur, you can join that stream of courses. So right from the first year, there is a seed sown that, okay, if you want to be an entrepreneur, start learning what needs to be done. And then again, final semester, they do that.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but just to get one really important thing that strikes me is that you talk a great deal about the curriculum development, and so that means engaging the faculty. Can you just very briefly tell us, how do you have resistance from the faculty? How do you go about getting your faculty on board to support all of this change and integration in the curriculum?
Yeah, so as I said, we have industry members, we have alumni on our board. Okay, so alumni are also working in industry. And so when they give us inputs, you know, so when they gave us, one of the alumni gave me input, and just give you an example. They said, why don't you include finance for engineers? Why don't you use psychology for engineers? Because when we move out, the alumni said that when we moved out, we really didn't know what is a credit and debit and what is a balance sheet. We used to be very scared of those words when it came to us. And as an engineer, we have to handle a lot of budget. And if there is no knowledge about it, it's difficult. So why don't you introduce those courses? So then, because it came from alumni, it was accepted by the faculty, and we have introduced one credit course. Similarly, when the industry people say that we want a mechanical engineer to be able to do programming, so let them know Python programming, let them know Java. So if it comes from the industry, the faculty accepts it. And as I said, we provide a lot of training support. We provide lots and lots of training support to the faculty. And those who accept that, those who have a mindset, a growth mindset. So there are faculty with growth mindset, they come forward and they learn new things. Of course, there are challenges, but then somehow we are able to go ahead with the changes we brought in the country.
And if you have champions among the faculty, they can help to bring the others with them as well. Sushma, that's a great example. So conscious of time and the fact that we've got quite a few questions which I've been looking through as well. But I do want to go back to Dora and Jan with those questions that I left you, and I'm going to put another question out to the audience as well. I would like to keep you as busy as possible. Anybody who's been to an industry forum knows that they get quite busy and sometimes even hectic. So let's wrap up our session today in a similar manner with lots of energy. I would like, given we've got fantastic hosts for this session, we've got ASEE, IFES and the GEDC, important organizations that do a great deal of work to bring us together and to share knowledge, experience, insights. I would like to ask the audience, what would you like to see or how do you think our engineering education organizations can help us to address some of the issues that have been raised here, or to help us work on some of the ideas that are presented here? I'd really love to see your input on what would you see as the role of the engineering education organization. So please do write that into the question field and keep going with the questions as well. I'm going to come to those in just a second, but let's go back first, Dora, on the spot then. So one thing, you mentioned some fantastic, very concrete, very specific examples that were shared during the ASEE event. Just very briefly, can you think of one thing that you're going to take back to Siemens with you?
Well, I think it's to scale something we had already started, Kirsten, really looking at an online learning initiative that we launched 2 years ago, because we know we need to meet learners where they're at. And so making sure that we have the content available wherever they're getting that. Some of that might be in the traditional classroom, some of that might be online, and to make that available and modular as well for educators. There was a couple educators at this summit that just said, can you, to Jan's point, like, can you give us some of those applied technology, real world examples, fresh ones every year, right? So they can just quickly upgrade and update their curriculum. And so really having a focus on how we do that. And I think, Kirsten, you're actually supporting us on another project around the sustainability network. And that's where we're really trying to, around what Jan addressed about the ASEAN goals, is looking at how do you embed sustainability in engineering education? What's our role as a technology provider? What do our customers that are trying to address sustainability need from education? And so we're trying to bring academic and industry together to really define what that looks like and then obviously develop it.
It's a great project. We're enjoying it very much as well, Dora. That's a great example, and I really encourage people to go and use the resource that Dora shared, because there's a lot of information there on the ASEE link that you can take. Now, Jan, just very briefly back to you. Culturally, are you able to scale up and roll out the challenge that you talked about across the world? How is there something that you've observed that needs to be changed in order for that to work?
So what I see is that where it pretty works well is in countries and regions where governments are setting actionable recommendations. Like, for example, the UAE is a lot of focus on green energy, or Egypt talks a lot about water, food, and gas resources. And they're putting the goals out there, but also then demanding the educational system to follow that, because they in Egypt, they're saying to tackle the challenges we're having and to achieve the goals, we need the engineers to put it into place. So we are putting the recommendations and the boundaries in place for the universities to start changing the curricula. So the pressure comes from outside to change the way the education works. And where this is seen, has better results than in places where governments are not involved and not setting the boundaries and the rules.
Okay, that's very interesting. That really actually speaks to the question that the audience are answering as well, as, you know, the role of organizations within this to help maybe create some structure and some rules that then allow scaling up of innovation and great ideas within them. I'm going to come to some questions, so I'm going to put the questions out there. Just a very brief response from any of our panelists who would like to share and respond just in the last few minutes before I hand over to Hans. And great comments, by the way, from the audience. Thank you for doing your homework while we're discussing as well. It's great to see your ideas. We have a question about the generation known as Generation Z, more compatible with global connect and social media, how to select appropriate skills for students, and what are the upcoming skills you suggest to cope with that kind of change in industry? I think this is really a question, Dora, about, you know, what are the kind of top priorities in skills? Interested to see if you've got a response to that. That's from Amarjit, who is in India.
Yeah, so I would, the link that I believe Dominic shared, this was a study we did with fresh hires, because we really wanted to hear not just the industry lens or the academic lens, but students who have been working in the last 5 to 10 years, so they're pretty fresh out of school. What did they see that they were least or most prepared for? And so I would point to that. It's got some good information, both about technical skills, but also about professional skills. And I will come back to one other thing that Coursera had shared at the summit was, you know, I think it's something that we know, but it's looking at the jobs of the future, right? Haven't even been, I think the stat was by 2030, 85% of the jobs in 2030, right, haven't yet been invented. And I'll tell you a personal story right now, you know, my son deciding where he's going to go to school and what he's going to study. And how do you guide that when you know the job that he's going to have hasn't been invented yet, right? And so really looking at those core human skills, power skills, I've heard them called, and they're detailed out in that PDF study, I think is what we need to focus on. And we'll need to be able to gather the technical as we go, where we're at as learners. But those core skills are really important.
Very, very interesting. And it strikes me that we need to help, we need to do a lot of work on helping students actually do the self-reflection and self-analysis that will enable them to work out what they need to learn and what is in line with their passion, because we can't just keep giving students a checklist of skills and saying, you must learn these skills. They just can't fit it all in.
And that's where the mentor piece, you know, that I mentioned at the end is really important. And some of that, you know, it's a heavy lift on the people side. Maybe over time we'll have a little bit of that AI in systems, right, that can help guide them and give them those pathways so they don't have to figure it out individually.
For sure. And there's a question here, there's a couple of questions about the faculty resistance, which I hope that in the discussion with Sushma we have addressed. And faculty resistance, I say that with complete respect, because as somebody's mentioned in the comments, there's a workload issue to address. There's all kinds of reasons why it might not just be simple to take on board a change in the curriculum and integrate more interaction with engineering. But let's find the ways that that can work for everybody, for the institute, for the faculty, and for the students too. And there's a question here, NEP 2020 in India has recommended for the autonomy TO HEIs. What is your opinion? So I'm going to address this to start off with Sushma. What's your opinion about how ready are the institutions for autonomy? How ready do you think the Indian institutions are, the HEIs, for autonomy?
Yeah, I think higher education institutes who have been in existence for more than 5 years, they can go for autonomy, because autonomy is all about owning it yourself. That, okay, I'm going to develop my own curriculum. I'm going to design a system for delivery of it, and I'm going to evaluate the students. See, in the university connected system also, what we are doing is, we are doing everything except setting the question papers and evaluating the students. So when you become autonomous, you enjoy that. You can decide what you want your students to learn. How do you want to develop them in the next 4 years? So that ownership will come to you as your own institute. And I think when you start doing it, you really start enjoying, because I have mentored lots and lots of institutes to become autonomous institutes. So more than 15 to 20 institutes I have mentored, and they are all successful now. So any institute which is more than 5 years of existence, they can think of going for autonomy, and it's all possible. It's how you think of it. That makes a difference. It's about mindset. It's about mindset.
That's a great example as well, Sushma. Thanks for your hands on your leadership there as well. We have a load of comments and questions, and I'm going to respond also to one here from Dora, just to say, yes, I think what we'll do is we'll do a LinkedIn post to follow this up with a link to the video, so you can come back and watch this again. There's been a huge amount of great information. We're going to wrap up now, so just maybe Razvan, if you can put our final slide up there. And we'll share the comments and the questions, and if there are questions that weren't addressed, let's see if we can have a chat about them in the LinkedIn post as well, because it's great to bring this community together online as well. So in the last minute from me, I mentioned that there were 4 themes. Here are the 4 themes and the 4 dates that are coming up for the end of this program. Just to remind you, so this will be recorded and shared. We'll share the resources and all of the links that we have had. We'll share the chat as well, and you can get involved in these future dates, in these future webinars, kindly hosted by Krishna and his series, and you can see the themes there. And this has been quite a broad theme. In our next webinar, we're going to deep dive onto that theme of credentials, which is so important. 88% at the moment, according to Harvard Business Review, 88% of hirers are filtering out highly skilled candidates and not taking them on board because of a lack of traditional credentials on their resume. So we really need to get into that topic of skills and credentials, and that is what's coming next. And as I say, wrapping up at the WEEF, and if you haven't got that date in your diary in South Africa, I really encourage you to do that so that we can get together then. And finally, some exciting news. We're already planning 2023 Industry Forum activity. Very, very grateful to the work done by Jenga at Sustec. And if we can see that, yeah, something to get into your diary for the future. We don't know what the world will look like in May 2023, but I certainly hope to see as many of you as possible physically with us in Shenzhen. And I will wrap up just by underlining once again my sincere thanks to the GEDC and IFES teams for the organization here, to Krishna and the IUC for hosting us, to Elsevier, our sponsor, without whom we couldn't have launched the series. So thank you. It's really important that we're up and running, and to thank you all for your great interaction. And I see you on June the 15th and hand over back to Hans and Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen, for such an excellent discussion here. And I've been following a lot of the comments and chats on that have been submitted. And I think some exciting ideas have come up. I saw that University as a Service was one of the most popular themes from Dora's list. So I'm sure we have an opportunity to follow up, and I think a lot of comments from Jan about sustainability as part of the new education. I think we need to share some of the successes in terms of introducing sustainability into the curriculum. So we look forward to following up with all of you. I now hand this over to my good friend Hans Feier for final comments.
Thank you very, very much, Krishna. Kirsten, this was quite inspiring, and congratulations, and thank you for facilitating this thoughtful dialogue among three serious, important colleagues and members of our IFES and GEDC community. It's consistent with the kind of relationship that we've built and will continue to build together. Let me just make a couple of comments not directly related to our space, is certainly Cape Town. What's very important for you to put on your radar screen, please, our global conference, and vital, not only faculty members and corporate colleagues and deans and even government representatives, but the engagement of students. I'm in touch with a lot of students in different parts of the world, encouraging them to join us in Cape Town. I just want to put this on your radar screen at this particular moment. And we're even also in discussions. I am with Monterrey Tech next year to have our global conference and begin building connections in which students, together with faculty and deans, can plan not only for one event, but let's say over the next couple of years. I just want to put this on your radar screen. The other thing that's very exciting and inspiring is the continuation of the webinars. Of course, we're working closely with our dear friend and colleague Kirsten and Dominique and the team in terms of several webinars leading up to on the industry forum, GEDC dialogue and so forth, leading up to Cape Town, and then next year in China per se. But also we have a whole series of other webinars that many of you have participated. One key is our Rising to the Top webinar series, in which the women leaders that have written the first 4 volumes of Rising to the Top are engaged in sharing not only their intellectual but their personal journeys. And I'm working closely with leaders in both the MENA Arab world and Southeast Asia, writing our 5th and 6th edition per se, and we'll have a special space also when we meet each other in Cape Town. So I just wanted to put this on your radar screen. Please write to us, and thank you very, very much, dear Sushma, Dora, and Jan, for your outstanding, thoughtful presentations. Thank you, Kirsten, very much. Peace be with you and stay healthy above all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.